We're going to open in prayer, but we're not going to ask him. No. Oh, sorry. We only have till 11 o'clock. Okay. So. All right, let's pray this morning. Father, thank you for this time where we could just slow down and gather. There's so much that we're encouraged to learn, study, evaluate. Maybe we could just take some time for reflection, though, now. I ask you to guide and encourage us in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. So you're hit with all kinds of things that you're supposed to take back and do related to your programming. You can go to the exhibitor hall and get all kinds of information on those who can teach about fundraising. Go ahead. No, I'm good. I don't need anything. Thank you for that. But this is a different session. This is not a session where I'm encouraging you to change your relationships with outside companies or bring an outside company in to do anything. I just want to encourage you to spend some time in the next 45 minutes together on your staff. I have told my staff multiple times they are my number one customer because they're the ones I want to stay the longest. So when I look at my staff, I think of those people that are staying with me, and I want them to stay a long, long time. Now, in Gospel Rescue, we hire like crazy and fire like crazy. It's just the nature of what we do, especially when we try to bring in many of our graduates into payroll. And I tell my operations, I don't care how many W-2s we write each year. I really don't care because you don't know which ones are going to be great. However, the ones that come on full time, the ones that you trust in key positions, you need to know them very, very well. I have only fired one department head in 40 years because I knew when I hired her it was a bad idea. I knew. But to really slowly get to know and encourage. So that's what today's about. So if we look at your handout, this is a reminder to you, a reminder to me that our goal, our responsibility is really supposed to build them up and encourage and keep our people on our team. I want my staff to feel like they are on my team, and it's not easy because from the time they get to the parking lot, someone's at their door, at the door of their car. So one of the things we talk about is make sure your own personal issues are dealt with no later than one red light away from work. Because once you pull on, your time isn't your own. When you get in your car to leave, you really don't have your own time until you're out of the parking lot. Because they'll walk and follow you and ask you, you know all of those things. So I want to encourage you to just build up your staff. I want to share with you some of the things that we do that keep our staff with us. My staff doesn't leave. And that's not because of me. It's because of what the Lord told us to do in how to care for them. I know of shelters in my city where a resident can do whatever they want, and if they are evicted, the resident goes to the executive director and he says, let them come back. If he spits on staff, if he assaults staff, all you have to do is go to the ED and he says, oh, give them another chance. I think that could be detrimental. I think your staff needs to have the right to make some of those final decisions. So, as we talk about our people, our staff are all people employed by a particular organization according to the dictionary definition. But also a secondary definition is a group of officers assisting an officer in command of an army formation or administrative headquarters. So how do you view your staff? Are they just on a team, or are they supporting somebody making bigger decisions than them? So tons of fill in the blanks for you to go along. I like having something physical that I could take with me and look back on later. And so as we look at some of this, I want you to realize your staff should be viewed as your most important customer. Christ should be viewed as your most important guest and donor. He's your most important guest and your donor. I tell our staff all the time, let's pray for the donor, not pray on the donor. So we're praying for them and not praying, P-R-E-Y, on them, just because they're sometimes money pits. And we can go back again and again and again and again. I would encourage you to look at when's the last time you sent staff home early when it was not a holiday. Some of the things we talk about all the time. Do you bonus them for finding new staff members? When I'm looking for an opening, my staff knows that anyone they recommend to us who makes it through the 90-day probationary period, that staff member gets a $250 bonus. Because the longevity I'm going to get out of an employee that they brought on, who they already know is a solid believer, is going to tend to last much longer and save us time and money and training in the long haul. When did you last buy candy or gifts and give them out to the entire staff? At Dallas Life, when someone starts with us, we ask them a number of questions. What's your favorite candy bar? What's your this? What's your that? Just so that we can celebrate them. Daniel, who you've met with, who's here with me, our chaplain, part of his job is to just go office to office, and on the outside of the office, he's to put his hand up on the door of where you are working and pray quietly for you and go his way. You, in seeing him stop at your office, you realize that somebody's lifting you up, somebody's praying for what you're saying, somebody's praying for what you're not saying in your silence. He's there to encourage. So I think it's a healthy thing for people to know that we have spiritual leadership going office to office, praying for what's done in those. One of the things we do is we look at someone who's been full-time with us for 10 years. When they're there full-time for 10 years, they get a pin, they get a $1,000 bonus, they get recognized at a staff meeting. It's happened now, I believe, 8 or 9 times in the 21 years I've been there. It's something that they look forward to. Everyone who comes to work with us, after their 90th day, they get a Dallas Life shirt. After 3 months, they get another thing. Then when they're there with us for a year, they get something else. And so the longevity lets you know that that person gathers more Dallas Life things on their desk, apparel that they're wearing, small ways that they know you remember them. Just small ways. Let's see, of course, recognizing staff member's birthday. Some basic questions I asked. Do you know your staff spouses? That's important. Do you ever have them in your home? We have one day every year where our entire staff and their spouses and their children come to my house. And we cater in food for all of them. And it's just a relaxed time. And there's games and there's rewards and there's this and that. And whoever wins this gets an extra vacation day and la. Just small celebration time. Because we all know the nature of what we do will be there tomorrow. Whatever you walk away from today at your mission, tomorrow you'll pick it up and you'll never work yourself out of a job. So why act as though you can't step away from it for a little bit of a celebration? It's still going to be there. When's the last time that you brought in a special event for the staff that cost you more than $500? That's something I challenge people with. You're going to find out this afternoon at the business meeting that I'm hosting this convention next year in Dallas. And as a result, next year you're going to hear a violin concert because we have a violinist that was with the Havana, Cuba Philharmonic, and he is absolutely phenomenal with his violin. And it's a $700 concert, and I bring him in from time to time with my donors and things, but I brought him in just for my staff 3 weeks ago, and we had 45 minutes on the day before Good Friday, where staff came in at 1 o'clock for a meeting from 1 to 1:30, and then he went 1:30 to 2:15. That $700 is the best expense I could make for a 45 minute of calming one's heart, encouraging them spiritually, and then sending them home early. And they're off Good Friday and Saturday and Sunday. Just a small little thing. So you're going to hear him next year. He's that phenomenally good. And I want to share him with everybody that's coming for a convention. One of the things that we also talk about a lot is how your people feel recognized. In many cases, people feel like they are recognized only at their yearly evaluations. I don't know what your yearly evaluations are like. Sometimes it's a chart you fill out. Sometimes it's a yes and no. Sometimes it's a good and bad. Sometimes the yearly evaluation is where you tell people what they're going to be paid next year. Well, depending upon what training seminars and all the other additional things you could go to. We had a group called Stand Together come to Dallas. Now, the Koch family, very, very, very wealthy, solid, conservative family, selects nonprofits in every major city. They select 10, and they work with those 10 nonprofits for 3 years. When they came to Dallas, they selected us. We learned a lot from them. They took us to D.C. They took us a couple different places, flew a couple of us places. We did a TED Talk with them. One of the neatest things we got from them was the better way in which we should evaluate our employees. They said things like, you know, one of the things that we encourage companies to do is not do an evaluation in November or December and tell somebody what their pay is. Instead, do an evaluation that's not based on money. You might want to do an evaluation in September. September will tell them through the evaluation how they're doing. Good, bad, what needs to change, what they're doing excellently well. And then they are told that in December they'll be told what their pay is next year. He said one of the reasons they do that at Stand Together is because you evaluate them in September, you're going to get extremely good service out of them September, October, November, December, because then you're going to tell them what their pay is next year. So the evaluation can really be a challenge to improve their efforts and pull it up some. We did that 1 or 2 years, and then we decided to do the evaluation the way they encouraged us in terms of outline, but then to also let them know at that evaluation what their pay is for next year. So you could switch it up, you could try their way. But when you do your evaluations, is it, this is what you're doing well, this is what you're doing bad? I want you to think that through, because I'm including in the back of this, I'm 90% sure I did. Yeah, I included in the back of your packet our evaluation form that literally came from them on, and you could take a look at that later. But I want you to encourage them to take part of the team, not just point out their flaws. How many times we've been seated with a supervisor, and you feel like they have to come up with some strengths and they have to come up with some weaknesses, or else they didn't do your evaluation. Well, then you feel judged. How many times have you been scaled on a 1 to 10? They give you all 10s, and then you wonder why you don't get the raise you expected to get. How could you give somebody all 10s? And so those are things that come up in a court of law after, that someone received all these 10s. So then I read a number of things that said, well, tell your department heads, don't give anybody more than 3 10s out of 10 opportunities, because you don't want them to think too highly of themselves, because then if it comes down to being in front of a courtroom, and you stop. So we stopped the 1 to 10 thing, which is what Stand Together really encouraged, and to base it more on character, to base on what they bring to the organization, to base on how they eliminate waste, to base it on how they come up with new ideas, to base it on what kind of a team member are they, to base it on what you think others on the staff think and feel about them, and all comes down to character. And the first one is about their relationship with Christ. So we did it that way, and we have found that the evaluations are far more conversational. And the person sitting in the chair doesn't feel like they're being judged, but they feel like they're being encouraged. They feel like they're being built up. So after we're done today, and you take a look at that, that might help you. Praying for your staff. Does your staff know that you lift them up in prayer? Do you tell them? Do you have times of prayer as a staff? Do you stop and pray with a staff member in your office if you're the CEO when they're struggling? Do you have your business interests know that you're lifting them up before the Lord? Even if it's a non-believer. Just say, I happen to be a praying person. I'm going to pray for you. Have there been instances and conversations you've had here over the last few days where you learned something about somebody that led you to say, you know what, I'm going to pray. I'm going to pray for your family. I'm going to pray about that for you. I don't think there's any better thing you can do for someone than pray. I really, really believe that. We had a rather large remodel we did in 2021. And we asked God for $12 million, and he gave us 13. And we never shut our doors during the remodeling. It was COVID, if you remember. So I put everybody on the third floor and remodeled the second floor. Moved everybody down to 2, remodeled the third floor. We have 3 floors in the basement. Each one has 25,000 square feet of space. So I'm not struggling for square footage. We are able to take 500 people at Dallas Life. We have 300 guests each night living with us. We're the only shelter in the city of Dallas with available beds because I have rules. I'm not just filling the beds because you're homeless. I'm filling the beds with you because I think you no longer want to be homeless. And there's such a difference there. I do not believe we are supposed to have someone come in and tell us the way they're going to live, and we're supposed to adapt to it. Not at all. We're supposed to tell them just as Christ did. What is your greatest need? I'll meet it right now. Then I will tell you what your greater need is. So that's why in our case, we do not make someone go to chapel before we eat. I don't want anybody to think I'm holding fried chicken over their head if they don't walk the aisle. We feed, and then we do chapel. I found out we represent about 3% of Christian shelters in the United States that do that. 97% make you go to church before you eat. Interesting. Just a thought. Just give it some thought. What kind of setup are we doing? I find that people go into chapel without any expectations after that. It's unassuming. There's no pressure. Give it some thought. The things that we offer people. Christ met a person where their need was and then introduced them to their greatest need. So if they come hungry, it's hard for them to listen in chapel if they're starving. Just some thought. Let's see. In your chapel services, something to think of in terms of your spouse, of your staff, and the needy people that come. Some shelters view it as the place where every wannabe preacher should come into our shelters and learn how to preach. Bad idea. Because in doing so, you subject your people who oftentimes were raised in the church and know more than the wannabe preacher does. And so they're going to feel like they're being talked at. Another thing, screaming preachers. Very, very common issue in shelters. I tell our visiting speakers, homeless people out on the street are used to hearing, "Hey, you," and "get out of there." They're not called by name, and they're yelled at. They will never be yelled at in our chapel. I want you to be excited. I am fine with people getting excited and getting hyped up and raising their voice. Some, not every other phrase, not just expressing a basic point, doesn't have to be done at decibels beyond what's necessary. So watch the screaming preaching. Second, what is the format for preaching? Because if our goal is to have someone leave our shelters and never be homeless again, what do we want them to do? We want them to engage in the local church. How do they engage with a local church if they don't know what it looks like? So, having been a pastor for 8 years before I went into homelessness, I wrote 12 messages out of the book of Acts, beginning with Acts chapter 1, where Matthias takes the place of Judas, all the way up through what is the church, all the way through Peter's successes and strength, Ananias and Sapphira, selecting the first elders and deacons, all the way up to Saul's conversion, all the way up to his persecution before he's before King Agrippa giving his testimony, where Agrippa says, you practically tell me to be convinced to be a believer as well. Those 12 messages are essential to us because I have a 10-month program. Phase 1 is 1 month. Phase 2 is 2 months. Phase 3 is 3 months. Phase 4 is 4 months. Phase 1, 30 days, no passes to leave. You have a yellow bed ticket. You work in kitchen or food service 6 days a week. And I'm waiting for drugs and alcohol to come out of your body. Phase 2, 2 months long, classes. That's what this sheet I gave you is about. The classes are on there. There's 26 courses. Each has 8 lessons. Why? Phase 2 is 8 weeks long. We select between 12 and 14 of those classes. I wrote the whole program about 20 years ago. It's in 5 states now. If you're interested, contact me. I'll tell you about it. We do a Zoom where I walk you through it, what it involves getting it to your shelter. I come out, train your staff on how to do what we do. And so they go through 8 weeks of classes. So phase 2 is 8 weeks long. In that time, they're also going to get a counselor. I am very blessed being in Dallas because I am 2 miles from Dallas Seminary. And Dr. Joshua Freeman, who got his PhD from DTS, is an adjunct professor there, is my staff member in charge of counseling. And there are 24 master's level counseling interns at my shelter every day who have to do between 400 and 700 hours to graduate from DTS. I get all that counseling for free. Awesome. So we are really blessed, and we know it. So Josh did his PhD on the interworkings of counseling and homelessness. So he has a number of staff members, 3, and then all 24 of those counselors are free. So that happens in second phase of the program as well. Then phase 3 is when you're going to go out and find your own church. So phase 1 and phase 2 is a total of 3 months or 12 weeks. So the 12 messages I wrote in the book of Acts, we rotate them through. They are the 12 messages that keep rotating. Daniel does some. His outside guest speakers do some. So we have Sunday chapel, and then we have it on Tuesday and Thursday nights. Some shelters have chapel every single solitary night of the week. That's your choice. I would say to you, do you go to church every single night of the week? Is that viewed as exhausting to you? The same people who are sitting in those chairs that hear the gospel, that's a wonderful thing. But if you have outside people who come in that preach every single solitary night, are you expecting more of them than you'd ever expect of yourself? Do they have any downtime? Are there other things you offer than just chapel and dinner? Just give it some thought. So we have Tuesday night, Thursday night chapel, Sunday morning, Sunday evening services. And those 12 messages are circulated through. So I know that our phase 1 and 2 people are learning what a healthy church looks like, not just church in general. Then they get to phase 3, and they have to choose. An outside evangelical church teaching Jesus is the only way to salvation. So it cannot be Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, cannot be Catholic. It's got to be a Bible-teaching evangelical church. They bring us back 2 things, the bulletin and the sermon notes. Bulletin tells me you were there at the beginning. Sermon notes tell me you were there at the end. We evaluate online to make sure what that church believes. Now, we're in Dallas, so they have Tony Evans, they have Chuck Swindoll, they have Robert Jeffress, they have T.D. Jakes, they have everything in between. I'm fine if it's charismatic church, if I know the doctrine of the place. I know T.D. Jakes. He's somewhat of a friend. I know he's accused of being a modalist. I've specifically asked him at lunch once about that, elevation of the Spirit and ignoring the other members of the Godhead. And he said, please don't think that's who I am. That's how they're promoting me online. That's not who we are. So we do have some of our people that go to T.D. Jakes' church. So when you look at all of those things, you have to evaluate, what are we really preparing a person for when they leave? It should be a solid church relationship. How are they going to learn that unless we tell them what a healthy church looks like? How are they going to learn that unless we tell them what churches are not the places where they should go? So in the 3 months of phase 3, they start visiting churches, because in phase 3, they're also going to get work. So basically, phase 1, 1 month, yellow bed ticket, drugs come out of your system, you wake up. Phase 2, 2 months of classes, counseling. Phase 3, brown bed ticket. You're going to start looking at local churches, you're going to get a mentor, and you're going to find work. I make you fill out 15 job applications every week in phase 3, or you leave. End of story. Every one of my phase 3 people are working, every single solitary one. When they get their paychecks, they come back. They absolutely must put $50 a week in their savings account through us. When they do that for 3 months, they get to phase 4. In phase 4, they transfer from part-time work to full-time work. They keep meeting with their mentor. They keep meeting with their counselor. Now the churches they were visiting, they pick the favorite one where they believe they could plug in the most, and they join a local church in phase 4. Now in phase 4, when they're working full-time, they must save $150 every single week through our system, because we have it tabulated that the 3 months of phase 3 and the 4 months of phase 4, saving that way, upon graduation, you have $3,000 in the account, in the safe, in the mission. We, PNC, drives onto our property and has a mobile bank. And they, right there, can open an account with $1. And there's an ATM on the side of the truck. They can go in and get money out. Because we know an apartment's going to cost them $1,500 in Dallas. I don't want them living in the slums of Dallas. I don't want them living in a substandard apartment where people are doing dope. So as a result, I say don't count on Dallas Housing Authority or Section 8 or any of that. Let's realize Jesus never said to make a tenant or an employee. He said go and make disciples. I cannot tell you how many times I have been at convention, 20 years at Citygate. My booth was set up where this program is offered, and I say to an executive director, so how are your success rates? Great. What percentage? Oh, we're just doing great. I didn't ask you that. What percentage? How do you know? Foundations today say, don't tell us you're doing great. Tell us exact percentages. So I have 8 benchmarks someone must meet to graduate from Homeless No More. They must find a job with our assistance, find an apartment with our assistance, have professional counseling, get their GED or be offered a college class through downtown Dallas's community college system. They must have a mentor that they meet with regularly. They must fix burnt bridges with their family. They go through all those benchmarks. We register every single one of them on our computer system. And those people that go through phase 1, 2, and 3, so they've had the drugs come out, they've gone to class, and they start looking for a church, 90% of my people graduate. Last year was the first time since I've been there we hit 100% of my phase 4s walked in graduation, cap and gown and all that. Foundations want to know, what are you doing that's different than everybody else? They don't want to know what you're doing. They want to know what you're doing that is different than what all the other shelters are doing. So we say, well, we have 100% or 90% graduation rate. We're the only one that's got a long-term recovery program for those that are disabled. We're the only ones that have single men with children can stay in our building in a private room. We have our own in-house daycare that is fully supported by Child Care Network. Those things matter, so what's going to make you different is what they want to know. Ben Carson heard about our results and had me go speak to Congress twice on Homeless No More. And so it's in Raleigh, North Carolina, it's in Covington, Kentucky, it's in Wisconsin, it's in Colorado Springs, it's in Dallas, we're going to Flint, Michigan, and we're going outside of Phoenix this year. So we'll be in 7 states. So to me, those results have to be provable.
You were saying assistance with housing, so you actually...
Assistance what?
With housing.
Yes.
So you actually sit down with them and find places of residence for them?
We do. We do. We have a few apartment complexes that come to us and say the only formerly homeless we will rent to are those who went through your program. So I've been praying about one thing, and literally Monday it happened. I have a major donor who contacts me every year and says, Bob, Lana and I want to do something. What can we do? And I said, here's what I'd like. I really